Hey everybody, Who's Your Jedi here with another review for you. This time we're talking about episode 8 of season 7 of Dexter called Argentina. Again, this is an episode, there's quite a bit going on, but it's also a little bit of a quieter episode. There's really not much going on in terms of action. This is really just a lot of little moments for the characters. Now, again, not that the story doesn't move along. Some pretty significant stuff goes down this episode, but I think we're looking at this is a calm before the storm. I think that's a pretty safe way to put it. So let's just get right into things. We've got a lot to say about our main characters, so let's actually briefly start off by quickly talking about the side characters and what's going on there. Quinn. Well, what can I say? Quinn continues to make extremely bad decisions. Although at the very least, you can say that he's at least not doing this of his own free will. He's being blackmailed by George. That's the name of the guy that owns the strip club. I for the longest time could not for the life of me remember what that guy's name was, but I literally looked it up just a minute before I started doing this video, so I will make an effort from now on to refer to him as George. Now, and I did like that George makes a really good point when Quinn says to him, well, if you put that out there, you go down with me. And of course, George points out to him, well, Isaac killed 3 people and we managed to get him off the hook for that. So, bad guy or not, he does make an excellent point. The Kashkas probably could get him off on that charge. It's certainly not like they don't have the juice to find somebody else in Miami Metro to dick with evidence if they really, really wanted to. And, as much as I've harped on him over this season, which has been admittedly a great deal, just the scene at the very end with Quinn sitting in his car, just sort of looking completely miserable, that did genuinely garner some sympathy from me for him. And that's also, of course, due to the scene with Nadia. Him having that conversation, her saying, well, look, I only have to work for these guys for another 2 years. And of course, Quinn is cynically, but probably correctly says, these guys aren't going to let you go. So this relationship with him and Nadia, it does really genuinely ring true. And, Quinn having a real emotional connection with somebody, well, that in my mind is something kind of new. We saw him sleep with a suspect last season. Bad idea. His whole thing with Deb was really, in my mind, Quinn just sort of equating sex with love. And, well, we all saw how well that turned out. Now, is that kind of what's going on here? Well, we're, of course, being led to believe that's not. But, again, keep in mind, it was on the orders of the Kashkas that Nadia started getting friendly with Quinn. And there's still a part of me in the back of my mind that wonders if maybe this is not some just elaborate setup. George has proven himself to be a pretty smart customer. I could still see that. And given the extremely cynical nature of Dexter as a program in general, I could see it happening. So either way, I think we're in for some interesting stuff with Quinn. So we finally get to see Angel's bar, and it actually looks like it's doing all right. If Angel is going to be walking off into the sunset at the end of this season, and as I have repeatedly said, I'm sure we're going to be losing somebody from the main cast this season. He's the one who's been set up to have the happy ending, or at the very least maybe be reduced to the role of an occasional supporting character or guest star. Of course, this could all just be the show setting us up to yank the rug out from under us and kill Angel in a horrible and tragic way, which of course would upset us viewers because, one, Angel's a pretty cool guy, and honestly, at the end of the day, he's really one of the more moral people on Dexter. Now, to move on and quickly talk about LaGuerta. Finally, LaGuerta comes across something that does genuinely seem to be at least moderately compelling evidence. Now, granted, it's just that Dexter bolted on his contract at the marina while he still had 8 months on it. But there's any number of perfectly legitimate reasons that Dexter could come up with to explain that in like 10 seconds. So, but on the other hand, blood splatter guy doing something somewhat suspicious and blood slide, it's still a pretty big stretch, but well, it sort of does make sense that someone like Dexter would take blood slides as a trophy than a former special forces soldier like, good old Dokes. I mean, well, from what I understand of the history of military folks when it comes to taking trophies, blood slides are usually not on the menu. And that's all I think I really need to say about that. Now, sure, why not? Let's move on and start talking about Hannah. Now, that calendar that she has in her place. The way she talked about how that calendar, the way she kept it, and how Argentina represented something for her, it really resonated with me. Now, Dexter at the very end says that Argentina is something that we're all looking for, and that it's a metaphor for a clean slate. And you know what? Given the way that what we're seeing as we're panning through the various characters and what's going on with them, and just how horrible and screwed up their lives are, that's actually quite well done. That's some very nice writing, some very nice directing, some very nice acting, all around. And it is what Dexter says is true. There have been times in I think everyone's life when we wish we could all just have a clean slate, throw it all away, and just start over fresh somewhere else. But the reason it really resonated with me is I actually had something like that for a long time in my life. And it wasn't a calendar. It was actually a cheap little plastic model of the Statue of Liberty that a friend of my great-grandmother's picked up for me at my request on a trip she made to New York City. Now, if you're not familiar with the Hoosier part of my name, Hoosier is basically a nickname for people from Indiana. All right, that's where I'm from. And I didn't exactly grow up in a hick town. There were basically 40-some thousand people in my hometown. Really a small city. And, well, in retrospect, it was actually a pretty alright place to grow up. When I was a kid, and I got that statue when I was about 12 or 13 years old, at the time, I just really felt trapped. As I said, it was an alright place to grow up, but there really wasn't a lot there. It just seemed to me like such a small place, and filled with people who I knew were never really going to go anywhere else. They really weren't going to do much beyond my hometown, our hometown, with their lives. And seriously, growing up, one of my great fears in life was that I'd end up like that I'd just stay there, basically hardly moving from the spot where I was born my whole life. Now, as I got older, I kind of got out there. I've been quite a few places in the world. If you've been paying attention to my videos, you've probably heard me mention that I currently live in South Korea. Well, I spent almost 3 years of my life living in Japan. I've been a lot of places in America. I've been to Canada and to Mexico, been to China. I've had some really awesome experiences in my life. I've walked along the Great Wall of China. I've meditated in a Zen monastery in the mountains of Japan, and I've sat around on the sets of the Sydney Opera House reading Punisher comic books. So, and I'm not saying this to brag or anything, but that's the reason. One of the reasons that I was able to do these things with my life is that I never let go of that dream that I had to not end up stuck in my hometown. I literally kept that little Statue of Liberty statue sitting on top of my TV in my room all the way through college. And the only reason it ever got moved is anyway, it's a long story that doesn't really matter. But anyways, for literally like 10 years, more than 10 years of my life, that little statue sat on the top of my TV in my room, and every time I would look at it, I would think about doing more with my life, of doing things that would really make me happy. That's what that statue represented. It represented that there was more to life than just what was there in my hometown. So now again, this is the show does kind of use the calendar as a metaphor for something very different. But again, I do think that that's how, in so many ways, Hannah could have felt about that calendar. And I'm sorry if I spent a little bit too much time rambling on about my personal life, but I have a feeling that a lot of folks out there have probably grown up in small towns, small cities, and felt exactly the same way. So at the end of the day, I guess let's just say, well, that's something that went through my mind while I was watching this episode, and I thought I'd share it with you guys. Now, moving on to stuff that is not involving my personal life. Let's talk about Hannah. Again, it's really hard to read her of like the interaction that she has with Dexter at the beach. Is she genuinely interested in having a family? Because remember, her former sister-in-law said that Hannah didn't really strike her as the type to want to have kids. And you have to think that a plant expert like Hannah, well, if she wanted to use some herbology to kind of cook up a little concoction that could cause a miscarriage, well, I don't think that would be very hard to do. So, is Hannah lying? Is she telling the truth? Really, I don't know. And that's part of what I like. I like that I can't read her character very well. Now, granted, it's very obvious that she likes Dexter, that she's drawn to him, and that she does seem to be genuinely interested in pursuing a relationship with him. But what exactly Dexter's kids, where exactly they would play into that? As I said, I can't really read that situation very well. Although you would think that Dexter would be a little bit more wary here than I think he is. Now, granted, it's not that he's totally, hey, Hannah, come and meet the kids. He obviously is feeling a little hesitant here. He doesn't really like the idea of the family life aspect of his life and the killer and aspect of his life coming together. And considering the last woman who was really drawn to Dexter in such a similar fashion was Lila, who tried to murder Aster and Cody, Dexter's hesitation is perfectly understandable. I just think that I think he maybe should have been just a little bit more, I don't know if forceful is the right word, but I don't know. I can't really find a word for it, but I think Dexter... Okay, I can't really find a word for it, so why do I keep rambling on about it? I have stated my opinion, so let's not waste any more of your time. Let's go on. Quick laugh. Miami Metro stated to not be morons by George, I believe it was. Okay, I'm just going to take a step back and say there are many, many numerous examples throughout the history of this show that the guys at Miami Metro are complete idiots. So, yeah. Let's see. Yeah, sorry, I'm just looking at my notes here. So let's go back to talking about George briefly. I like that he's really stepping up. For the most part, he's been going around just sort of being Isaac's sort of not exactly loyal henchman, but he's done what Isaac's told him, mostly because he's afraid of him. But when the opportunity comes to really step on Isaac, to get above him, George doesn't hesitate to do it, and I like that. It makes him a much more interesting character. It adds an additional level of conflict. And it's pretty interesting to see Isaac in a situation where he knows things are really going bad for him. He knows that if he dicks with what's going on too much, he himself could be killed by the very people that he works for, that he is a part of. And, it just at the end of the day really does make George a much more formidable character. So I do like that. Now, the whole assassin guy that got sent to kill him. Look, I really think they should have found someone else to play this guy, because the actor who does it just does not have the slightest bit of menace to him at all. He just feels like some dude from the apartment complex who just sort of wandered in there to complain about Isaac playing his music too loud at night or something. There's nothing that seems even remotely competent about this guy. I mean, I don't expect him to be Isaac's dude, Jorg. But seriously, can George not find somebody more competent than this dude? And then the guy just sort of says, "Oh, you're here to kill Isaac. Well, I'm not going halvesies with this on you." Dude, Isaac's a big, scary, smart dude. If this random dude seems to genuinely want to kill him as well, then declare a truce, man. And then of course Dexter takes this guy out like that. I mean, oh my god. Seriously, this really, after seeing George be so smart this episode, of seeing him get to the point where even Isaac has to play his cards right, or George is gonna kill him. This is just ridiculous. This totally undercuts George, on so many levels. I mean, again, I could really go on and on about this, but this is just stupid. I mean, really, it is. Okay. I think we're good to go on that. Now, yes, we get a guest appearance by Aster and Cody this time around. And you know what? I actually like this. I'm pleased about this. First of all, because I actually like the actor and actress who play Aster and Cody. For actors who are so young, I think they do a really nice job. And the girl that plays Aster especially, I think that out of all of Dexter's family, now that Reed is gone, I think she's actually the best character. Now, granted, you can't really knock Harrison. He's 3 years old. At that point, child actors are really just props that need nap times rather than actors. So you can't really fault them. Harrison is really there to be a plot device more than he is as a character. But again, looking back when we were dealing with the Trinity Killer, Aster came in for an episode there, and she had a really nice story arc. She had done some stuff that she shouldn't have, but she was doing it for a good reason, and it created some really nice bonding between her and Dexter. And again, we get to see the same situation here. Aster's smoking weed, but Dexter's cool about it. He talks with her. They have some really nice moments. Their conversation leads to some good insights on Dexter's character. And the conversation that Dexter and Deb have with Aster. With weed used as a metaphor for killing and everything that's going on for both the arguments that Deb and Dexter have made to each other. That was just really some very clever, some very brilliant writing, some very wonderful acting in that scene, just the extreme awkwardness of what was going on. Just really, really good stuff. Now, let me see here. Actually, let me just hop back to Hannah really briefly. There was one thing that Hannah said that really sort of jumped out at me, and Hannah keeps saying, like, I'm always going to be Hannah McKay, the spree killer's girlfriend. Okay, Hannah, you were given immunity for your crimes. What the heck was stopping you from move to Alaska and change your name or something? Okay. Okay, just an idea I'm throwing out there. Heck, you could have probably just moved out of the country, gone and started a new life in Iceland or something. But, again, that's just something I'm throwing out there for you guys to think about. Now, let's get to the real major stuff with this episode. And since we're talking about Dexter and his family, here Deb comes clean with Dexter about her extraordinarily creepy romantic interest in him. And following the Joss Whedon rule of television, of course this has to happen in the most absolutely horrible, emotionally devastating way possible for everyone involved. And again, I really don't think I can add a huge amount beyond really good writing, really good acting, very good direction. And I like that Dexter literally just does not know what to say. And, to be completely fair to him, Deb, I don't really think there is a standard response for your sister telling you that she's in love with you. Dexter just literally locks up. This is something so far out of his experience, out of hopefully the experiences of most people, that there is no response to that beyond I don't know what to say. And I think Harry was being a little bit unreasonable when he was getting on Dexter's case about how Dexter just walked away. I think Dexter did make the right call in agreeing to Deborah's request that he leave. Clearly, he's going to need to take some time to think about this situation and try and come up with something he can say or do to try and deal with this situation. I mean, there ain't no Hallmark card for this, folks. And of course, we get a rather supremely ironic moment at the very end where Deb catches Aster smoking weed and then starts puffing away herself. Dexter goes out looking for a kill, and Deb smokes weed in front of her niece, step niece. Oh boy. This is such a screwed up family. It's really is wonderful. Now, we of course come to our other big revelation this episode. This is that Isaac and Victor were lovers. Now, this is something that's been speculated about by fans ever since Isaac first turned up. I was reading, I believe it was over on Television Without Pity or something like that, where when we first see Isaac go to Victor's apartment and hunt up that picture of the two of them, he said something in, I suppose is Ukrainian, that someone mentioned, basically translated as "my Victor." And of course, this had a lot of people wondering, well, were they lovers? And while other people were speculating, well, maybe Victor was actually his son. Well, now we know. First of all, what I have to say here is that, and I've raved about him before, but seriously, Ray Stevenson is just phenomenal. Just the dignity and humanity and pain that he brings to Isaac when Dexter and he are having that conversation in the gay bar. This is really just wonderful stuff, folks. I really wish I could think of better words to offer as praise for Ray Stevenson's performance. But apart from the fact that I consider this to be some of the finest acting that this show has seen in years, I'm really at a loss. And this, of course, does do an awful lot to humanize Victor. He even says that if circumstances were different, he and Dexter probably could have been very good friends. And honestly, it's hard to look at the situation and think, yeah, he's probably right. If circumstances were different, Isaac probably could have been that friend that Dexter has so longed for. That person that Brian couldn't be. That Miguel couldn't be. Certainly not the person that... Well, alright. I think my point has been made. And, speaking of Brian, man, Deb, what is it with you and guys who are being drawn to guys who are serial killers, huh? Let me see here. Just let me get my notes here. Actually, let's kind of continue talking about Isaac. He makes a really great speech about love, and it's very much a nice contrast to what Dexter says about how he thinks that everything can be explained, while Isaac is very much against that idea. It's very much how is it? Romanticism versus enlightenment, with Isaac as the guy who stands in for romanticism and Dexter as the advocate of enlightenment. Now, there's a whole lot more to say about that sort of thing in terms of history and philosophy and all this other stuff, which I'm not going to beat you guys over the head with. But at the end of the day, it's just that Isaac is basically saying, clocking in for team emotion, while Dexter is clocking in for team logic. But frankly, if you actually even stop and think about Dexter's personality for a moment, you see that Dexter's really on pretty thin ice with his idea that emotions are everything can be explained and that love is like the way he says it is. I mean, look at some of the stuff that Dexter has done because of the people that he loves. If you really stop and think about that, Dexter's argument doesn't hold water for a minute. But really, it's not about making a major philosophical point. Dexter, I think more than anything, simply doesn't want to agree with Isaac, even though in his heart of hearts, he probably agrees with him. But under the circumstances between them, I think Dexter could not bring himself to admit that Isaac is right in any way, shape, or form because he'd consider it giving Isaac a victory. Now, and this is especially true if you think back last episode, the way Dexter, after giving that big speech to Isaac about how he killed Victor and how Isaac is going to be next, just that look on Dexter's face after he leaves, where Dexter is obviously looking a little worried. You could tell that was some serious false bravado on the part of Dexter. So, with that, folks, I think I've said everything that I have to say about this episode. Again, a lot of setup going on, but still, the story moves forward. There's some really great writing, directing, and a heck of a lot of really good acting here. This is doubtlessly a calm before the storm, but I think things are really going to be coming to a head pretty soon. A lot of bodies, and I mean a lot of bodies, are going to be hitting the floor of this. I have absolutely no doubt. And I have a feeling it's going to be phenomenal. This is easily, as I have said before, one of the best seasons of Dexter in the last couple of years. I am totally loving it. This coupled with Walking Dead on Sunday nights, oh man, this is good TV. And with that said, folks, I'm going to call it. As always, please comment, rate, and subscribe. You could, of course, follow me on Twitter at Hoosier Jedi. And until next time, take care and have a good one.